Hey, good evening, all. I'm Gunner, and this is Gunner's Range. Tonight, I wanted to talk just a few minutes about what I consider to be the political naivete of both Donald Trump and JD Vance regarding geopolitical strategy. Now, I don't mean to make you think or anyone else think that I'm not a PhD or thing, but I have real life experience. My time in the Marine Corps, the time I spent in the intelligence field. And I think I've learned a few things in the school of hard knocks over the years. I've been very disappointed. And first of all, before I go any further, let me make it clear. I'm voting for Donald Trump. Because as I see it, the alternative is much worse. But be that as it may, let's talk about what I consider to be a weakness of Donald Trump. I truly believe that he has been sucked in by Vladimir Putin. And Putin has done a good job, I think, of making Trump think that, he's terrific. And he is. We can look at the 4 years he was in office, and there's no question that he did a great job when he was in office. He made some mistakes, but we can look, the country was a lot better off. But the point is this. We look at the Ukrainian-Russian war, and the fact that President Trump thinks that that Ukraine should be willing to make concessions goes against everything that we hold to be dear in terms of the freedom of a country. And even worse, I'm a retired Marine, I've said it before, and I am totally embarrassed by the stance JD Vance has taken in this. He was a Marine, served in Afghanistan, but clearly when it comes to geopolitical strategy, he's an idiot. This thing, I don't know where you live, where you are, but as you view this, I'm going to ask a question of you that I would ask JD Vance if I could. If he was here, I'd ask him point blank. Let us say that wherever you live, be it in a city, a state, a country, let's say tomorrow the Russians invaded where you live. And then 2 years from now, you're still trying to kick them out. And you haven't been successful. And then suddenly, someone from the European Union, let me rephrase, because you may be in Europe. Someone somewhere suggests that you should be willing to give up land in order to obtain peace. Now, what would you say? Really? Same thing with JD Vance. I'd love to look at him and say, Senator Vance, if the Russians invaded Ohio tomorrow, and 2 years from now you're still trying to kick them out and you haven't been able to, and someone out there says, well, why don't you give up Ohio in order to obtain peace? Now, what do you think? What would your answer be? And that's what really bothers me about his stance on this. Now, undoubtedly, like any politician, he would most likely try to, as we say in Louisiana, he would try to crawfish on this and come up with some kind of an excuse about, well, we're different. No, you're not different. Your home is invaded by foreign power and you're fighting for it. Are you really willing to give up your home just to obtain peace? I think not. And that's what bothers me. Vance, as a U.S. senator, should really know better. Plus, he was in Afghanistan during combat situations, so he of all people should know better. It really bothers me that he would even suggest for even 1 second that Ukraine should be willing to give up territory in order to obtain peace. Well, my point to JD is, well, JD, as soon as you'd be willing to give up Ohio if it was invaded, then I think the Ukrainians ought to be willing to give up their territory to obtain peace. But somehow or another, I truly feel that JD would not agree with me. And it's the same thing with President Trump. He's a great businessman. There's no question. All you have to do is look at his record, what he did when he was in office 4 years. There's no question. It's one thing being a great businessman, but it's another issue understanding geopolitical strategy and what it means to the world. And I would say again what I've said before, I said in a previous video, if the president throws Ukraine under the bus, then I think the United States would be unable to obtain any help from Europe if there's a war in the Pacific. I think the Europeans would, and rightly so, would say, wait a minute, you left us here to handle the Russians in Europe, and now you want help in the Pacific. Like, we think not. And I would have to agree with them. And to be very honest, it could very well lead to the United States losing a war in the Pacific to the Chinese, which, in all honesty, would probably signal the beginning of the end of the United States as a world superpower. And that's a fact. We've become soft. We've forgotten what freedom's like. We've forgotten what we've done to get where we are. And my father, who's a World War II veteran, would turn over in his grave right now. And I'm sure many World War II veterans would, if they were alive, would cry, would weep to see what's happened to this country. But at any rate, the point here is that I hope somehow someone slaps JD in the face and says, hey, come back to reality and realize what you're really talking about. Because it's, to me, as a retired Marine, knowing he is a Marine, it's a real embarrassment to me. When I can look and see that there are Army generals out there, like Petraeus and General, forget his name escapes me right now, but the point is that they see the truth here. And it's a shame that Vance is unable to. So, okay, well, that's enough for tonight. Again, I hope I haven't bored you too much, and I hope you've enjoyed this even a little bit. And I will close by wishing you a good evening and Semper Fidelis.